Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa, and I'm 18 years old. Recently, I brought home a man who destroyed our family and broke my heart. But as it turned out, I'm not the one to blame. My family is pretty rich because my dad works a lot. He's a businessman, and my mom's a college teacher. They built a strong family, and I thought that nothing could ruin their relationship. But several events over the past month have shown that if one person alters a small detail from a perfectly working mechanism, everything will explode. It all started one day when I decided to skip school and come home early. When I walked into the house, I was immediately frightened because a complete stranger was standing in our kitchen. When he saw me, he started to smile, nervously, and tried to be friendly. He said he was a student and that my mom was tutoring him. We introduced ourselves. His name was George. I talked to him for a while, and he seemed pretty nice to me. Soon, my mother came down, and she obviously did not expect to see me at home. I was surprised too because I didn't know my mom was tutoring anyone. She said that she started recently. Then George left, and Mom asked me to keep quiet about her tutoring because Dad was pretty jealous and he would be against her extra work. At that time, it sounded logical. Anyway, George started showing up at our house more often, and I was actually happy about it because he was attractive and he was smart. But most importantly, he was older, so he looked cooler in my eyes. I enjoyed the few minutes that we were able to talk sometimes. As you might understand, I began to fall in love with him, but I didn't have the courage to tell him. At first, I decided to share my feelings with my mother, but when I told her how I felt, she got scared and worried. I didn't know what was wrong because I was old enough to have a relationship, but my mom told me to stay away from him, and she said he wasn't the man I needed. I don't know, maybe something happened between them and she thought he was a bad guy. But what can I do? I was totally in love with him. I thought about him all the time. And the fact that my mother forbade me to communicate with him only tempted me even more. I used to dream that he was a bully that everyone thought was bad, but deep down he was a good man, like in the cool movies, you know? But I wasn't the heroine of the film, and I wasn't brave enough to tell him about my feelings. I found his Instagram profile and just stared at his photos without daring to write to him. Oh my God, his profile was beautiful. He had a bunch of pictures from all these cool places that he'd been all over the world. He's got a really cool car. Oh, maybe one day he'd give me a ride. Yes, as you can see, I was just crazy about him. But one day, I finally worked up my courage and asked him out. I was walking up to our house, and I saw George coming out of it. He was clearly upset about something, and he just walked right past me. I was confused, but my mom explained to me that she wasn't going to tutor him anymore, and that this was the last time he'd be coming to our house. At that moment, I realized that I might be seeing him for the last time in my life, but I didn't want to miss my chance with him. I finally got up the courage and decided that this day I was going to end this. So I ran out of the house and I tried my best to catch up with him. Thank God he didn't go too far. Now I realize how stupid I looked in his eyes. The girl, who was short of breath, trying to say that she wants to have coffee with him. This was terrible. But George thought for a moment, then smiled and said, "Of course." Wow, he just said a few words and I was over the moon. Then we went to go get coffee together and we talked a lot about different things. Finally, his classes with my mom were not distracting him and we could talk for more than a couple of minutes. When we were about to say goodbye, he asked for my phone number. That meant he liked me. Oh, at that moment, the butterflies in my stomach just went crazy. It was this amazing feeling that warmed my whole entire body from the inside. It's hard to describe, but I was just so happy. That's how we started dating. And I have to say, it was just awesome. He was always trying to please me, and he always knew how to do it. We met literally every day and went around to all the cool places in the city. We went to the movies, to parks, on rides, to cafes, everywhere. One day, he somehow managed to pull some strings, and we were allowed on the roof of a very tall building. We sat there almost until the morning and just watched the stars. It was incredible. He was just the perfect boyfriend. I never thought someone could be so interested in me. So our relationship developed pretty quickly, and soon George said that he wanted to get to know my parents better. Maybe he'd come over for dinner and meet my dad. I thought, why not? Only I was worried about one little thing. Mom said I shouldn't date George, and I didn't listen to her. So she definitely wouldn't agree to dinner, and we'd probably have a fight. I just needed to get George home so my mom could see that he was actually a great guy and that she was wrong about him. Then I decided to tell my parents that I wanted to introduce them to my boyfriend, but I didn't say anything more about him. They'd find out at dinner, and it would kind of be a surprise. And this day finally came. Mom made an amazing dinner, and we were all waiting for my boyfriend. Finally, the car drove up to our house, and the doorbell rang. It was George. He came into the house with flowers and greeted everyone. My mother was very surprised, or rather, not surprised, but scared. She was clearly unhappy that I brought him home. She quickly took me into the kitchen and began to scold me. She said he shouldn't be here and that I had made a big mistake. I assured my mom that she needed to get to know George and that everything would be okay. But it didn't work on her. So as soon as we sat down at the table, there was an awkward silence. I literally heard every fork hit the plate. For some reason, my mom looked at George with fear. Dad finally broke the silence and asked how we met. George told him everything. My father was surprised when he found out that his wife was doing tutoring, and my mother was a little ashamed when George revealed this fact. But then George added, "Wives can hide more than that from their husbands." After this sentence, I realized that something was happening and I didn't understand what it was. After that, George raised his glass and took the floor. And then I understood what kind of game he was playing. He revealed my mother's other secret. It turns out he wasn't her student, he was her lover. And he was tired of her promising to divorce her husband and start a family with him, so he came to ruin it by himself. These words swept like thunder through our house. My father looked at my mom questioningly, but she was already crying, so everything was clear. He realized that mom had been cheating on him. For a second, there was a wild tension in the room, and I knew it would end badly. Then Dad became furious. As soon as he got up from the table, George ran to the door. Dad ran after him, and then I heard the sounds of cars leaving. At this time, I couldn't even move. I thought it was just a nightmare. All of George's words were true. They only made up the tutoring as a cover because I caught them at our house. It seems that my mother broke up with him, and George started dating me so that one day he could come to our house and reveal this secret. But the story isn't over yet. He ran away, and my dad chased after him. I've never seen my dad so angry, and I was afraid that something bad would happen. A few hours later, Dad was still missing. All this time, my mother was crying, and I didn't even think to calm her down. Besides, in reality, it was all her fault. She was cheating on her husband, and me and my dad were just victims of her lies. Mom admitted that she started a relationship with George because she didn't get enough attention from my dad. He was at work all the time, and my mother was all alone. But as it turns out, George only wanted money from our family. And as soon as he realized that he wasn't getting anything from my mom, they broke up. And then I took the first step toward him, and he figured out how he could get back at us. I was sitting in silence with my mom. Suddenly, the phone rang, and it was the police. They said Dad was at the police station. So then my mother and I pulled ourselves together and went to the station. He was sitting there covered in bruises and scratches. We wanted to take him home, but it wasn't that simple. It turns out that my dad was chasing George in his car. Not only were they committing numerous traffic violations, but they got into an accident and got out of their cars and started fighting. Yeah, Dad was just furious. And now, in addition to a bunch of fines, he was facing having a criminal record for causing bodily harm. Although I believe that George deserved even more than that. I can't imagine how my dad feels right now. His daughter brought home a guy who was his wife's lover. And now he has to go through so many difficulties. Court, divorce, division of property. My dad didn't deserve this. And George? I loved him. Or rather, I thought I did. It seems he already had a lot of experience in seducing women, so I just didn't stand a chance. There's everything wrong with this story. Mom, who decided to cheat on Dad, me, who couldn't see this simple deception, and George, who decided that he had the right to destroy our family. Now, I think about how to put together the pieces of our broken family and my broken heart. I guess I'll just have to live with it. Thanks.